Hey everyone, Pastor Devin here, and it is so good to see you this morning. I say that, but it kind of feels like I'm filming my own hostage situation video and hoping that you'll bail me out or provide the sum to get me free from this situation. But I promise I have joy in my heart, and I'm so excited to spend this time with you, even though we're pulling from the vault. For whatever reason, we're going to the video today. So I've prepared this for a time just like this. So I hope you're still excited, you're still engaged, you're not getting up and leaving. You're here. Don't worry. No one has to come up with a sermon on the spot. We have something that I believe the Lord has prepared for us special today. And so coming from the vault, we're going to go to the vault in the scripture, so to say. We're going to spend some time in the book of Obadiah. Yeah. Obadiah. Some of you right now haven't caught on to the fact that that is even a book of the Bible. You've never read it. You might not even known that it existed, and I don't really blame you. It's a really small book of the Bible, but that's where we're going to spend our time today. So we're just going to jump right in together today. And I've got to catch you up on some things. It's an obscure book with a lot of context involved of things going on in the Bible with the book of Obadiah. And so strap in, find the book of Obadiah in your own Bible or your phone or whatever you have, and join me on this journey together. So Obadiah, who is Obadiah? We don't really know much about Obadiah. I told you, this is really the vault. So you might be in luck because you don't really need to know much about Obadiah because we don't really know that much about him anyway. We don't know where he was born. We don't know when he lived. We don't know any of these things. We don't know his parents. We kind of know a general timeline, if you will, of where he was, but we generally don't know much more than that. Obadiah's name means servant of Yahweh, or worshiper of Yahweh. That's the word that they use in the Old Testament for the Lord, for God, was Yahweh. So the book of Obadiah, who was Obadiah? Obadiah was a prophet. And remember, prophets in the Bible, they have a message that they're supposed to be giving from God to people. Well, what people is Obadiah giving the book to? He's giving a prophecy to Edomites. Who are the Edomites? They're distant cousins of the Israelites. The Edomites, who are the distant cousin of the Israelites, they are descendants of Esau. And something really special about this book is that this is the only prophetic word designed to be given to people who are not part of God's children, that are not the religious folk, those that are, as you would say, pagans or Gentiles. These are to the Edomites, that of the line of Esau. Does the name Esau sound familiar at all? Jacob and Esau in the Old Testament from Genesis. Man, Edomites and Israelites, Esau, Jacob. There's some conflict in there, and that's what this book is about. That's where it comes from. So let's start all the way back. Journey with me back to Jacob and Esau. What about Jacob and Esau? Well, Genesis chapter 25. Esau was a hunter. He was a man's man, an outdoorsman, if you will, who just did not fit in the same way Jacob did. See, Jacob liked stuff to be prim and proper in the home. He liked to be, I guess you would say, cultured, or the inside work at the time is more of what fit him. So Jacob and Esau could not be further from each other, even as brothers. Well, one day comes, Esau's super hungry. He's out, he's hunting, he's out hunting, and he needs food. So he comes home, and he opens the door, and Jacob is cooking up something really, really nice. He's cooking up some stew. Esau says, "Hey Jacob, give me some of that stew. I want some of it right now." And Jacob says, "I have something that you want." Well, he takes advantage of the situation and gives up this bowl of stew to Esau in exchange for Esau's birthright as the firstborn. In the Old Testament life, the oldest born son gets a birthright. He gets blessings. He gets things from the father. So time passes, and their father, Jacob and Esau's father, Isaac, was near death. He was blind, and he wanted a great, great meal before he died. So he wanted that. And so Jacob dresses up as Esau, and he tricks Isaac into giving him the birthright. He spent the rest of his life feuding and fighting with his brother by tricking his father and taking advantage of his own brother. Jacob would have this whole experience over his life, but these two brothers, they would become two significant tribes and nations in the history of God's people. Jacob was later named to Israel. God changed his name to Israel, which would be the nation of Israel, the Israelites. And Esau, his descendants, would become known as the Edomites. So Jacob and Esau, these tensions are there. They would make up later, but guess what? It never happens for their descendants. And so this book of Obadiah is to the Edomites, Esau's descendants, calling them out. Calling them out about what? Well, when is this group going to get what they deserve? Have you ever been there before in your life? There's a group of people, maybe what they believe or what they think or who they are, where you go, man, they need to get what's coming to them. When is the wrath of God going to take them out? And no one is. How come God isn't doing anything? Does God really care? And so God, in the book of Obadiah, is saying, enough is enough. And so, I want to join you in the book of Obadiah now. Hopefully you found it. It's a very small book. It's seemingly just one chapter. And I'm going to jump straight into the text with you, if that's okay. We've kind of done some catching up. I encourage you to read the whole thing in entirety. It'll take you 10-15 minutes max. But we're going to jump straight into the middle of the book here, into the violence, the action of what is going on as this message is being given to the Edomites, the descendants of Esau. So let's read this together. We're in Obadiah, I would say chapter 1, but there's only one chapter. So we're in Obadiah, verse 10 is where we're going to start. Obadiah, verse 10. And the word of the Lord says this, because of the violence done to your brother Jacob, shame shall cover you, and you shall be cut off. On the day that you stood aloof, on the day that strangers carried off his wealth and foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were like one of them. You stood aloof. This word aloof, we don't use it that much anymore. In the Bible, the Hebrew there is amad eka meneged. It means that you stood on the other side. It's not you were aloof. It's not just you were aloof, but you were standing on the other side as these things happened. So much to say, you refused to lift a finger to help your brother in need and did nothing to come to the aid of your brother, your companion, your friend, those around you. And so my question for you this morning, church, is this. Are you unconcerned with the need of your brother? How do you show that concern? Do you have any concern for the needs of your fellow man, for your brother, for your fellow church members, for visitors, for the people in your community, your fellow countrymen here? What do you think? You see, many times God will show you areas of need in ways that you can help people. It's not enough to just point out that there is a need or there's a problem in your community or on the side of the road or saying, oh, hey, maybe I should have stopped and helped this person. That's not the case. You see, that's not the case. You can say, oh, well, someone else will stop and come and get them. They will do that for them. I don't need to stop for them. Surely someone is going to come after me to stop. But what if perhaps God is placing that on your heart in that moment because he wants you to do something about it yourself? Maybe God is asking you to do that today and for whatever comes after. And so what is your concern like for your fellow man? And so we continue in the text. In verse 12 it says, but do not gloat over the day of your brother in the day of his misfortune. Do not rejoice over the people of Judah in the day of their ruin. Do not boast in the day of their distress. And so, the accusation and my question for you today is, do you or have you gloated, rejoiced, or boasted at the distress and misfortune of your fellow man, of your brothers? You see, verse 12 is referring to Edom's failure, the Edomites, their failure to help the Israelites when they were being attacked by Babylon. The Israelites were invaded by Babylon, taken captivity. They were utterly destroyed and taken captive. And the Edomites were close by geographically in proximity. And what did they do? Nothing. They watched as it happened. You know, if someone you feel has wronged you, or you don't get along with, you disagree in belief, and something comes and happens to them, are you kind of happy in your heart that day? Or maybe you're scrolling on Facebook and you see something bad happen to someone who had said something to you someday, or they believe in something that you think is dumb or wrong, and they have something wrong happen to them. Does that give you, in some little part of your heart or your life, some joy or satisfaction? Where you go, I'm not happy, but it kind of feels good. Have you ever felt that way? So I think if we're honest with ourselves, at some points we do feel like that. And all of this is done from the sidelines. Remember, the word said that it was done from the sidelines. You know, Proverbs 24:17, verse 8 to 18 says this: "Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and let not your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it and be displeased and turn away his anger from him." So continuing on, one more that the Lord gives to his people through Obadiah here. Verse 13, it says this: "Do not enter the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Do not gloat over his disaster in the day of his calamity." And catch this: "Do not loot his wealth in the day of his calamity." Are you taking advantage of those in unfortunate situations? In what way? Whether it's financial or personal gain, whatever it may be, how are you taking advantage of someone when they are in deep need? You see, there's a story I read that took place in southern China in 1996. It was a brother and sister by the name of Huang Tao, which is the boy, and his sister. They were at the Wangshuan River Bridge in southern China, and they were playing and enjoying the day on this bridge until, unfortunately, Huang Tao slipped and fell into the water. And there's people around that day. It was a popular day. It was a big day out, and it was sunny. There was people playing. There was people fishing. There were people enjoying the river. And so who was around? Well, the first was this group of young men. There were some young men there who were just playing. They were playing soccer that day, and they went and asked them and said, "Hey, is there anything you can do?" They kind of ignored it, but they knew what was going on. They asked a shopkeep that was right there and said, "Hey, can you help?" The shopkeeper closed his stand and left immediately. And an interviewer comes on the scene and went up and asked the group of young men who were playing soccer over to the side that were witnessing what went on and said, "Hey, why didn't you do anything?" And I quote, one of the young men who was there stood out from the crowd and said this: "If I rescue him, what good will that do me?" What good? You see, it's easy to scoff at that, but that is the heart of some of us. What gain am I getting from that? I have to expend all of these things to help someone, but how is that helping me in my life? And so the parents finally catch on of what's happening to their boy, and no one will help. And so they say, "Okay, we're offering money. We offer 100 yuan. We're offering money. Can anyone help? That's $15 US. Can someone help? Please save my child." So the young men close by, the ones that were later interviewed, came and said, "Hey, okay, let's bargain for money. We'll do it, but it's got to be for a certain price. So how much money can you give?" Nearby, some soldiers who were doing some exercises in the city that day in southern China noticed what was happening and immediately jumped into the situation. They see the young men and the family still bargaining, and the soldiers begin to get ready to jump in and to go save the child. But it's too late. Wang Tao and sister, they've already gone under the water and drowned. A fisherman later recovered the body. And you would think that when they recovered the body, they would then give the child over to the family. But no. The fisherman said, hey, you're the parents of the boy, right? I'll give him back to you, but you need to pay me. How much were you going to give to the young men before? They said, okay, well, we were going to give $15. We were going to give 100 yuan, but he's dead now. He said, I'll give you your boy back if you give me double that. 200 yuan, $30 US, and I'll give you the body of your young boy back. Do you, have you, are you taking advantage of others in their time of need? Are you kind of like a vulture? Bad things befall people, and do you use that to your own advantage or personal gain? Because the Edomites were. While the Israelites were being attacked and becoming captives of the Babylonians, they said, oh, this land is open now. We can make some gain for us in the midst of all of this calamity. Let's see if anything was left behind. Let's see if there's some riches or some goods that we can possibly take from them. This is a great opportunity for us. The state of their heart was not in the place it should be. In the end, it always comes down to a matter of the heart. And that's what we're going to continue to focus on this morning with the moments we have left. Join me again in the scriptures. It continues one more time. Verse 14, another is levied against them. It says, do not stand in the crossroads to cut off his fugitives. Do not hand over his survivors in the day of distress. So not only did the Edomites not lift a finger to help the Israelites in verse 11, they laughed and rejoiced over the misfortune of the Israelites in verse 12. Then they looted and took advantage of their destruction and their calamity and their demise from the Babylonians in verse 13. All three back to back. And then they even went as far as helping the Babylonians capture fleeing Israelites, fleeing Jews, referenced in verse 14. Which is exactly the deal that was struck. We know based on history, the Babylonians approached the Edomites and said, hey, if you cut off a fleeing point, since you're geographically close by and I know you don't like the Israelites, could you cut them off and capture any that remain when we come in to attack them? And guess what? They did that. And then they had the privilege and the honor of the payment that they get out of it to then go ransack and pillage the town after the Babylonians were done with it. That was what they got out of it. So the fourth one is, do you assist in the distress and the misfortune of your brother, of your fellow man, of those in your community and your family, those around you? Are you not just a bystander, but are you actually assisting in it, in their time of need? For the Edomites, they were. Remember, the matters of the heart. It will always come down to that. Do you see any of these relating to your own heart today, like the Edomites? The story continues in verse 18. It says, the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau stubble. They shall burn them and consume them, and there shall be no survivor for the house of Esau, for the Lord has spoken. You see, the Edomites settled down south of Hebron, and they faded into obscurity in history. That's why you don't really know of the Edomites all well. They went there, and then they became known as the Idumeans. I-D-U-M-E-A-N-S, the Idumeans. And they began getting bullied by other nations relentlessly for generation after generation. First, it was Israel, the ones that they bullied. Israel came back with a vengeance. And then Rome, which was serious business for them. And you would say, well, who famous or what importance is it for you to be mentioning this? Who cares? What are the Edomites or the Idumeans? They got bullied. What matters? Well, do you remember someone by the name of Herod the Great? Well, Matthew chapter 2, he tried to kill Jesus as a baby. Herod was an Idumean, an Edomite. He comes from that line. Eventually, in 70 A.D. in Rome, Rome sought to destroy the Jewish nation, Israel, for good this time. And guess what? The Edomites, all that were left were 20,000 of them. It was a very small nation by then. I told you, they'd really be obscure and kind of fade that way. There's 20,000 of them left in 70 A.D. And finally, the Edomites stepped in after that many generations in 70 A.D., long after Jesus had died, resurrected, gone up and ascended, did the Edomites finally decide that in their matters of the heart, they should step in for their fellow man, for the Israelites. But guess what? It was far, far, far too late, as you could imagine. They were completely obliterated. And that was the official end of the Edomite tribe. Too little, too late, when they had many opportunities to step in long before that happened. In the end, it simply matters of the heart. Philippians 2 says, in verse 3 to 8, says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped. But what did Jesus do? He emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even on a cross." And so, for us, when it comes to matters of the heart, it makes it really plain this morning. We are to humble ourselves, to serve others, and be obedient to God. My question for you this morning is, are you satisfied living a life on the sidelines? Being a bench warmer, being an onlooker, a bystander, someone who stands on the other side while things happen to those around them, waiting for other people to get involved, other people to do something about it. Surely someone else can fill that place and change and help others. The reality is this morning. It doesn't matter who you are or who they are. It doesn't matter any of those things. If you're in this room, the reality is this. You understand pain. You understand what it is like to be overlooked or to be ignored. You understand your own journey and your walk with God if you're here today. Whether it's your first day walking with God or your 1,000th or 10,000th, we all know what it's like to feel those deep pains in our heart, in our life. I'm going to take it a step further this morning. I'm going to go so far as to say that when it comes to matters of the heart, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, a Republican, white, black, Latino, whatever gender or sexuality that you have. It doesn't matter even if you're a Clemson fan, Gamecocks fan, whatever it is. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't even matter if sometime generations ago your great-great-great-great-grandfather did something to your cousin's great-great-great ancestor and you're still mattering about it today. Who cares? Just like Jacob and Esau, the Israelites and the Edomites continued this feud long after Jacob and Esau had already solved it. It didn't matter because they already were so lost in these matters of the heart that they kept this pain going. They kept this hurt going. They kept this feud long after. And for those that are leaders, you know, well, you may have your own change of heart. You have to think about your whole company. You have to think about your whole organization or business. It's not just you. You have to change the trajectory in the heart of many people. It has to start within. It has to start with your own matters of the heart. And so I'm here to declare to you today, just like the Word speaks to us now, that we are all brothers and sisters, the children of God. Period. And I think we need to live and love just like that. You know, when we look at our communities here today, West Columbia or Camden or somewhere far off, how are we going to actually make this happen? You know, I believe God has called this church, not just capital C church, like Christianity as a whole, but our church here. And man, hasn't God blessed us so richly over the past few years at our congregation and amongst our people. God has been so good. And we need to share that goodness with the community. We need to be asking ourselves questions about what does this community actually need? What about our brothers and sisters? Do we know our brothers and sisters? Have we gone out and asked them what their needs are? How they're feeling about us? What we can possibly do as a church? What needs are there in the community? Would they like to be involved in any of that? What about our homeless? What about our food banks? What about ministry for single moms or divorcees or widows or widowers or orphans? What about homeless ministry? Does the community need another polling location? Does it need education for GED programs and night classes for different things, or for professional life skills? There are so many options here. What about our brothers and sisters that used to be a part of our church, or used to be a part of our community, or our family members who have gone away? See, there's an endless list. So if people say, well, this doesn't really relate to me that much, then I would wager maybe, just maybe, you haven't dug deep enough into your own heart, your own matters of the heart, of what you can be doing and where you are, where you find yourself now, today. You see, I think there's a little bit of the Edomites in all of us. I think we've done a little bit of all of these things. Maybe not recently, maybe not today, maybe just this morning on your way to church or wherever you're watching this from. I think all of us are involved in it in one way or another. I want to close with this section in Romans 12, verses 9 to 16. It really sums up for our life, really, what we are after here as a church and as Christians. It says this: love must be sincere. Hate what is evil and cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. In love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. And those who are not a part of the Lord's people, they are also in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless them and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. And live in harmony with one another. And so today I want to encourage you to get up, go, connect with your brother and sister in this community, not just here in the church, but all around, your neighbors, your coworkers, all of those who are around you, those you haven't met before, those you haven't shown love to in a while, that friend or that family member that you spoke badly of on Facebook or at the last family get-together at Christmas or something. You know what you need to be doing in your own life. Call someone in need, stop at the corner, help the person on the side of the road, apologize to the person that you've wronged. Live in harmony with one another today. We don't need generations of hurt and pain based off things that happened a long time ago. We know better. God asks us to be better than giving into our hurt and to our pain. And so I'm asking you, church, please don't be people that live life on the sidelines. Christianity was never meant to be lived on the sidelines. It never was. Get into the action. Live life with others. Show love, show grace, and do life with other people. Thank you. God bless.